Rockstar has officially named more than 20 GTA 6 characters, and I've become convinced the cast page tells us more about the plot than either trailer does. This isn't a leak thing. The bios that Rockstar wrote themselves tell us a lot. 9 of those characters come with a paragraph of official backstory, and when you line those paragraphs up next to each other, they start to look a lot like a plot outline. I'm gonna take what Rockstar and the leak community have put out about this game, grade how solid each piece actually is before we use it, and try to build the most careful picture of GTA 6 that exists anywhere. Let's get into it. Now, a quick word on what this one is built on. Almost everything here comes from Rockstar's own character bios, and the 2 official trailers, which is about as solid as pre-launch evidence gets. Where I'm leaning on the 2022 leak or on community consensus instead, I'll say so. And if I'm flat out guessing, I'll flag that even harder. Let's start with Jason and Lucia, because they carry the most evidence by a wide margin. We know they're the 2 playable leads, and that Lucia is the first playable female lead in a mainline GTA. And from Rockstar's own wording and the way the studio has talked about the pair, we know this is a criminal couple built in the mold of Bonnie and Clyde. That part is confirmed, not a reading. Rockstar's bio has Jason growing up around grifters and crooks, doing a stint in the army, then working for drug runners in the Keys. Lucia comes out of Leonida Penitentiary, having done time protecting her family, taught to fight by her father from a young age. Here's why the Bonnie and Clyde label is actually more important than it sounds. The real Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow ran their spree across the central United States for about 2 years, and it ended on May 23, 1934, on a back road in Bienville Parish, Louisiana, where a 6-man posse fired something like 130 rounds into their car in a matter of seconds. That's the story that framing comes attached to. It isn't a love story with a happy ending. That framing has a countdown built into it. So if I was to bet on it, I'd say the reason Rockstar keeps reaching for that comparison is tonal. The trailers sell you the romance, the history sells you the ending. But I'm not going to pretend I know whether Rockstar takes that ending literally, whether one of them dies, or whether the studio just borrows the doomed couple energy and swerves at the last second. We simply don't have the mission structure yet. What the pairing tells us for certain is the shape of the thing. 2 people whose fates are tied together. And that's the spine everyone else on this list hangs off of. Now, Jason. Jason doesn't exist in a vacuum, and the character who defines his half of the map is Brian Heder. This one's on solid ground too, because Brian has a full Rockstar bio. He's described as a classic drug runner from the golden age of smuggling in the Keys, still moving product through his boatyard with his 3rd wife, Lori, and he lets Jason live rent-free at one of his properties in exchange for muscle and shakedown work. Treat all of that as confirmed. It's Rockstar's copy. The phrase "doing the work" there is golden age of smuggling in the Keys, and that's a real era, not set dressing. Through the late 1970s and into the early 1980s, the Florida Keys and South Florida were the main gateway for drugs coming into the country, to the point that locals had a nickname, Square Grouper, for the bales of marijuana that washed up on the beaches and bobbed in the channels. Miami became the cocaine capital of the country in those years. Heder is a man who lived through that and survived it by letting other people take the risks, which is exactly why he now has Jason doing his shakedowns. I can picture Brian as the gravity Jason is trying to escape. Jason's bio openly says it might be time to try something new, and you don't write that line unless the old thing still has a hold on him. If I'm reading it right, and this is speculation, Heder is the debt Jason can't quite walk away from, and Lucia is the reason he finally tries. The detail that makes me nervous for them is Lori, because in one of the website clips, she's holding an assault rifle, which suggests the beach bum smuggling world turns sharp fast. Again, that's me interpreting a single clip, so hold it loosely. Sticking in Jason's orbit, there's Cal Hampton. Rockstar names him as a friend of Jason's who also works for Brian, and the bio and trailer paint him as a conspiracy theorist who's extremely online and spends his time snooping on law enforcement. The role is confirmed. What he does for the plot is where I start guessing. The real-world hook here is that Florida is genuinely the pirate radio capital of the country. For years, the FCC has found more illegal, unlicensed radio operators there than in any other state, and the problem got big enough that a federal law aimed squarely at it, the Pirate Act, was signed in 2020 with penalties that climb into the high six figures. Florida has a deep culture of people broadcasting from the margins, listening to things they aren't supposed to, and deciding the official story is never the real one. Cal fits that mold precisely. So my read, and it's only a read, is that Cal is two things at once. He's the comic relief, the friend who calls you at 3 a.m. about something he heard on a scanner. But I also think he's Rockstar's way of putting a surveillance and paranoia theme in your ear, the character who keeps reminding you the cops are always listening. If the game has a hacking or intel mechanic, I'd bet Cal is standing near it. That's a guess, stacked on a guess though, so I'll leave it there. Now, let's move from the keys up into Vice City itself, because that's a different power structure with different people. The anchor there is Boobie Ike. His Rockstar bio calls him a Vice City legend, a former street thug who's built a business empire that runs from real estate into a strip club and a recording studio. Around him, you've got Draquan Priest, tied to the same music operation, a label the community has pieced together as Only Raw Records, plus the rap duo Real Demens. That's Baylux and Roxy, who show up in Trailer 2. The names and the broad roles are confirmed by Rockstar. Some of the exact connections between these people come from community analysis of the trailer, so treat those as strong consensus rather than official fact. This is where Vice City's real history earns its place. Miami's music scene has a long tradition of the street guy who turns a record label into an empire, and the sharpest example is Luther Campbell and 2 Live Crew. On June 6, 1990, a federal judge in Florida ruled their album legally obscene, the first record ever declared obscene by a US court, before an appeals court threw that ruling out 2 years later. That whole saga, a Miami music mogul at the center of serious money and a federal obscenity fight at the same time, is the exact world Boobie Ike is drawn from. So here's what I think the Vice City crew tells us about the story. Jason and Lucia start at the bottom, in the keys and on the street, and Boobie's world is the ladder above them. He's the version of success that looks clean from the outside and isn't. If the game is about two people trying to climb out of small-time crime into something bigger, these are the characters who sit at the top of that climb. That's my interpretation. Not Rockstar's, but the geography of it lines up. The last character I want to put real weight on is Raul Bautista. And I'm going to be careful here, because this is where confirmed and consensus start to blur. Rockstar has named him. The description that follows him everywhere, that he's a seasoned bank robber and the logistics man behind complex jobs, comes more from press coverage and community reading of the trailer than from a long official bio. So I'd file the name as confirmed and the job description as strong consensus. The real anchor is simple. Miami has been one of the most active bank robbery cities in the country for decades, and the single event that defines that reputation is the FBI shootout of April 11, 1986, when 2 heavily armed robbers took on 8 agents in a South Miami suburb. 5 people died, and the aftermath rewrote how the FBI arms its own agents. That's the tradition a character like Raul plugs into. If I'm betting, Raul is the engine of the back half of the story. Every Bonnie and Clyde arc needs the job that's too big, and a seasoned heist planner is usually the man who brings it. I'd guess he's the one who pulls Jason and Lucia into something they can't undo. But we don't have a single confirmed mission involving him, so that's a projection off his job title and nothing more. And now, I'll be as transparent as possible, because a good cast analysis has to include the empty chairs. For all these names, there are things the characters flatly do not tell us. Rockstar has not named a single antagonist. Every crew and threat we've seen so far is inside Jason and Lucia's orbit, but the person or force they're ultimately up against has no name and no face yet, and that looks like a deliberate hole. We also don't have a single voice actor confirmed by Rockstar. The strongest report out there is from Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, who, based on union filings, has Manny L. Perez attached to Lucia. That's a credible journalist with a strong track record, so treat it as likely, but it's not a Rockstar confirmation. The Jason casting rumor around Dylan Rourke traces back to a 2024 YouTube claim, and the Brian Heder guess of Stephen Root is a fan voice match off the trailer audio. I'm not going to pretend I know who's behind these characters because Rockstar hasn't told us, and the honest answer is that the cast reveal is probably being held for a later beat of the marketing push. So here's where I land. The characters we already have are sketching the outline. A doomed couple, a boss who won't let Jason walk away, a paranoid friend wired into the police, an entire Vice City power structure sitting above them, and a heist planner still waiting for his moment. None of it is the full story, but it's a lot more than nothing, and all of it stands on Rockstar's own words, rather than a rumor mill. What do you think the cast is telling us? Do you read the Bonnie and Clyde framing as a real ending, or a bluff? Drop it in the comments down below. Until next time, onwards and upwards.